our Constitution forbids offshoring this stuff, just grabbing people off the street and disappearing them to another country. Yet it is happening. Right now, I'm going to read to you from our upcoming guest. Hopefully he can make it. I know he said he's having technical issues. At airports right now, agents from the FBI and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, another Department of Homeland Security, have run facial recognition searches on millions of Americans' driver's license photos. They've tapped private databases of people's financial and utility records to learn where they live. And they have gleaned location data from license plate reader databases that can be used to track where people drive. That would also include every single intersection you drive through. You'll notice there's a camera up there. All that is photographing your license plate, just like you see on TV all the time, every movie, especially in England, where they're sitting looking at hundreds of monitors, every intersection, and there's Tim. Yep, it's quite true. We know it's true. And this is going back to the Biden administration. Now, flash forward, NPR did a report today on how part of the federal government's job is to report abuses overseas when it comes to human rights. And they have just delisted about 10 human rights. In other words, when our State Department lists other countries who have bad human rights records, and we're all familiar with those listing of bad human rights records, they have now been reduced by 10. By the way, keep that up, if you would, Renee, what Kareem has said, Salesi. Trump also admitted on film market crashes were expected, and it's time to get rich because his team engineered the crashes, and he got very rich from this RICO crime fraud. All that to say, and I'm just reading that off one of the files coming off the YouTube stream. Another one says, yes, this is live vicariously through YouTube and KPFK simultaneously. So there seems to be a lot of chatter on our YouTube channel, which you can get at Cary Harrison YouTube, where you can actually watch this and comment real time rather than needing to call in, even though we will open up the phones. Here's another one from Valinda. So glad you're broadcasting and your YouTube channel is working correctly this week. Thank you so much for that. I'm glad it's working well this week, too. And we can thank Renee Yawarski for that. So all that to say, right now, if you return to the United States, if you go on a vacation, you come back, they can seize your phone, they can seize your laptop, they can pull all the data, your contacts. We just had, we've seen this multiple times with people that are coming into this country, but now Americans are subject to this, which means you need to think about what's on your phone, what's on your laptop. Let's say you have photos of things that you would prefer others not to see. Only you know what that is. Only you know what that could mean. If you have texts between you and friends where you are saying undelicious things about what's going on, you can get in trouble too. Okay, so I'm just setting the stage for that, because joining me now to unpick these tangled Christmas lights of suspicion is Russ Baker, investigative journalist and a man who's spent enough time around spooks, operatives, and bureaucrats to know when he smells a rat, or at least a heavily perfumed ferret in a flag pin. He's written for The Nation, The New York Times, Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, Salon, Esquire, The Guardian, and The Village Voice, among others. He's covered foreign wars. He's done investigative reporting, written feature stories, produced content for print, online, radio, and TV. He's the author of the bestseller Family of Secrets, The Bush Dynasty, founder and editor-in-chief of Who, What, Why, a nonprofit, nonpartisan, publicly funded news site that explores stories, topics, and angles missed or ignored by the rest of the media. And you can check out his Substack newsletter, Going Deep with Russ Baker. Russ Baker, welcome. Glad to have you aboard today.
Hey, Cary, it's been too long.
Yes, we go back to the old Air America days, which is over 10 years ago, when you introduced Bush Family Fortunes. And we did a very cool living room salon together in Hollywood. So it's nice to be connected to you all this time along. and see the hair and teeth and the fangs and the claws that you, as the regular media, should have, but you still have it. So it is a tonic during these times. Let's jump right into it. This pile of distractions, misdirections, and bureaucratic Kafka cosplay, which is probably the only way to describe what's going on. The president said his administration is actively exploring a proposal to detain U.S. citizens and send them to prisons or concentration camps, if you like to pronounce that as two words, in El Salvador. And minutes before a meeting with El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, the president could be heard embracing the concept, quote, the homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You've got to build about 5 more places, an apparent reference to more camps that would be needed in El Salvador to house U.S. citizens. Should we be worried?
Indeed, we should. It is a slippery slope. Of course, I assume if they asked him, he would say, well, he was talking about, gang members who are American citizens, I assume. However, we also know that he does not believe that political commentary is okay. And we know that because of what they're doing to students who uh, have green cards or other permission to be here who spoke out and expressed their opinion. So when you put together the idea of sending people who are not American citizens but are here legally uh, out or incarcerating them or whatever it's going to be because of their views. And you combine that with sending other people out because of them being alleged national security threats. And then you add this little bit you just referenced about the homegrowns. Now you have a pot of stew that anything could be in it. And so my concern is that potentially none of us are safe. And I don't think I'm exaggerating to say that if you come into the country, you're an American citizen, you're returning from a trip, and they look on your devices and they find something uh, they don't like. I mean, maybe a friend of yours cracked a joke about Trump's lifespan or something like that. Look, I mean, they could potentially claim that that is some sort of a threat. And I don't know if you know this, Cary, but they can, they've always been able to just pull you out of line uh, when you're coming into immigration. They've always been able to pull you out of line as an American citizen. I've had that happen to me. I've had them take me into a room. This was when Bush was president, and I was writing critical stuff about him. They asked me to come with them, and they took me to a room, and they left me there sitting for a long time before I knew what was going on. And eventually they said, oh, sorry, it was a mix up. You're free to go. And I said, well, what the hell? This is very disconcerting. The guy said, yeah, I know. So that was Bush. And of course, Trump, that much worse, if that's possible. And yeah, they have the right to take your devices to look at them. And so I think we have to start taking measures to protect ourselves, at least until we can get these people out of power.
Wow. We knew from Ed Snowden years ago about surveillance, but we hadn't had scientists stopped at the border, scientists that were going to actually help us with things like climate change and medicine, both of which no longer exist technically. They're scraping driver's license photos of all of us. We now know that we need to pay attention. What happens, Russ Baker, when national security becomes a Swiss Army knife for censorship? We're seeing detentions over opinions now.
Yeah, well, you see him referring to jobs as national security. You see him referring to everything as national security. I mean, of course, he referred to people coming into this country undocumented as being national security. I don't think that was ever considered to be national security before, in and of itself. And so, if there is no standard, if there is no specific and agreed upon criteria of what constitutes national security, and you have the kinds of people that Trump chose to run these places, the FBI, I mean, you imagine Kash Patel deciding what is and is not a threat. That's what we're dealing with.
I was earlier about to mention an NPR story today, which is going to be a ubiquitous story. But the way that our State Department used to list human rights violations all over the world, this current administration has delisted about 10. One includes violations beating up disabled people. That's now not on the list of naughty, bad human rights behavior. So now you can club infirm people, mentally ill people. This is the German T4 thing, going back to World War II, the Tiergarten 4, going after people with, as they called it back then, burdensome lives. It also includes hate crimes are gone, everything. People of color, boom, boom, beat them up. Like none of that exists anymore. And they're just whole cloth removing everything. Meanwhile, and you point out, and this is where I think it's very important, Russ Baker, you point out that a lot of this is distraction. We're busy getting these big, loud things like, I'm going to have a third term. And then the mainstream media and all of us go crazy for like 2 weeks. And while that's happening, 10 horrible things happen that we don't even get to know about.
That's right. I mean, I think this has always been Trump's style, and it's been Elon Musk's style, which is they found that if you constantly create chaos, you control the agenda. People are talking about you and what you said and what you did, and of course, Trump is so Teflon. I don't know what the term is. Maybe they don't use Teflon anymore, but whatever the term is, he can he'll just say something, he'll just say something, and then people will say you said that, and he'll say, oh, never mind, oh, never mind, I let myself off the hook, and people are like, okay, so of course they're going to endlessly stir these things up. Some people do believe that they actually have things ready to go when they expect that there's going to be some real bad news that's going to harm them. It is kind of amazing when you consider all of the bad news on every front that is not getting the kind of attention it should. And again, I think this is by design because, of course, we know that had Biden or any previous president done anything or had any kind of bad news of any type, they would have been all over them. And now it seems that there's so much bad news. There's so many problems everywhere. Just to give you an example, Cary, I was struck by this, that, they fired all these people from Health and Human Services. And then they discovered, well, they actually needed some of them because the people who were still working there didn't know how to do things, didn't know how to run systems. So they started calling people in. And you probably know Trump said everybody has to go to work physically, no more
remote working,
remote work. And so they said everybody's got to come to work. So, but they had started letting their real estate go. They didn't need all these buildings. They wanted to sell them. And so suddenly they had to take some satellite location of HHS, and they ordered thousands of people into work. And they ordered so many people in there. I kid you not, they were sitting on the floor because there were no desks for them. And in the end, guess what work they did? You're going to love this. What work did they do? They got on Zoom calls. I kid you not. They got on Zoom calls. And then at the end of the day, when almost nobody had gotten any work done because the whole thing was a disaster, they went to the parking lot, got in their car, and they sat there, Cary, for 90 minutes to get out of the parking lot.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? Well, you call low-cost airlines because they specialize in cheap flights, in discount hotel rooms, in cheap car rentals, and with the best price guarantee. Often 75% off. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795.
Well, it seems to me that I need to start making some T-shirts that say Cacistocracy and put those on CaryHarrison.com because this is completely insane. This is beyond a cartoon. If you're joining us right now, we're talking to Russ Baker, who has written for The Nation, The New York Times, Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, Esquire, The Guardian, and more. He's author of the best-selling Family of Secrets, the Bush Dynasty, founder of Who, What, Why, a nonprofit reader-funded news site that covers stories the mainstream won't touch. Also on Substack at Going Deep with Russ Baker. Reading a lot of comments that you're throwing up on YouTube right now, where we're also live streaming on Substack and YouTube. You can simply Google Cary Harrison Substack or YouTube, and that way we can stay connected when you arrive at your destination. You can find us easily live at kpfk.net. That's a special link that'll take you to the video feed where you can do the YouTube. You can throw your comments up there. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at caryharrison.com. Russ Baker, if the tariffs are hurting the working class most, because that's what we know is going to happen, and the MAGA crowd is largely working class, why hasn't that message cut through? What's the real failure here, the policy or the messaging?
Yeah, it's something I think about every day, and I talk to my team about, and we all sort of scratching our heads. There's no question that America has been bifurcated into sort of people who do avail themselves of what we used to call the news and people who don't. And I think you're really looking at a big chunk of America that simply doesn't get any information except through that kind of confirmation bias stuff on specific social media channels and places like Fox or worse. And of course, those places do not give them honest information about their own situations. It is still starting to cut through. And what I find most interesting is very small things. I noticed when I went to the post office a few weeks ago, there was a notice saying that they're not going to hold your mail anymore. Now, you might say, oh, I don't care. I don't go to the post office much, or I don't need my mail held. But you imagine who needs their mail held? I mean, this is people who struggle. They've got they can't afford household help. Maybe they're disabled. Maybe they drive a truck long distance, and they need their mail and their packages held. Maybe they live in a rural area. Can you imagine what happens when the post office says, no, if you don't collect it within a week or two, we're going to just send it back, which is what they announced. That's the kind of small Trumpian thing. Those things, Cary, I think are the first things that will start penetrating the skulls of the MAGA people, and they'll say, well, I don't like that. I don't like that. That you won't hold my mail anymore. Under Sleepy Joe, they held my mail, and weirdly, I'm predicting that it's going to be little, quote unquote, little things like that are going to start upsetting them. And they're going to be things that they notice in their own lives rather than needing to hear about it from the media.
Well, that is a tonic on its own. Small, but it's incremental irritations. And, it is truly, if you go in and to buy an apple and they're all bruised because, well, it's now bruised apples for everyone, that's enough to kill Mildred if she makes apple pies. If that's her thing. I was talking to a guy yesterday who's on PrEP, which is anti-HIV. It's so you don't get HIV. And he's in the VA and he gets it for free. It's one of the benefits you get as a veteran. Well, they're going to take it away because PEPFAR has been defunded and canceled, which could kill 20 million people around Earth, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, and ruin the programs we have here domestically. He's a MAGA guy. As soon as he realized he couldn't get the PrEP, he was very upset. So exactly to your point, Russ Baker. Final question here. Are we past the point where good journalism alone can wake people up, or do we need something bigger?
Boy, I think we need something bigger. And this seems to be the question of the moment: is how do the masses of us make our voices heard? What do we do? That has not been solved yet, Cary. They haven't figured out. Obviously Bernie Sanders and AOC are out there and so on, and we saw those marches on Saturday. but I think they haven't really figured out how to do civil disobedience. And I think that's really where we are, that somebody's got to figure that out, and civil disobedience has to start happening and happening consistently.
Wow. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on today, Russ Baker. How do we, I know you're on Substack for those who, and I yell Substack all the time, but if people go to Substack and put in Russ Baker, boom, there you are, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'm also on all those, Blue Sky and this and that, and still stay on X just to annoy Elon, and also our news. Our news nonprofit is called Who, What, Why. You can Google that, and please sign up for our mailing list.
All right. Well, thank you so much, friend, for coming on. Renee, if you could bring back that little comment. It is from Nelson. I'm not going to bungle your last name, Nelson. I'm going to be polite. But love your show. I am fan, long time, and listen to 90.7 KPFK FM. Love, good show, please. I'm all in talk for you, please. Thank you so much, my friend. These are comments coming up on the live stream. If you simply Google YouTube, Cary Harrison, or Substack, Cary Harrison. We've been talking to Russ Baker, who's written for The Nation, The New York Times, Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, Esquire, Guardian, and more. He's author of the bestseller Family of Secrets, The Bush Dynasty, founder of Who, What, Why. You've got to check it out. It is everything you need that you can't get probably otherwise. And it's a nonprofit, and it's reader-funded news that covers the stories the mainstream no longer, because they're terrified, and they should be doing something about it, but they won't touch it. He's also on Substack at Going Deep with Russ Baker. Coming up, grab your bonnets, because we're driving headfirst into the Netflix reboot of Little House on the Prairie. I'm going to be joined by none other than Alison Arngrim, the woman who terrorized your childhood as TV's #1 bitch. Not my words. Nellie Olson and Dean Butler, the man who played Laura Ingalls' love interest, Almanzo Wilder. We're going to look at the twisted tales behind the scenes, the horrors of fandom, and the unbelievable legacy of a show with secrets, the stories, and scandalous confessions to take a breath from the other secrets and scandals happening for you and me daily in real life. And it's next.
Listen, well, it's still legal.
The Cary Harrison Files. CaryHarrison.com.
Do you have diabetes? If you have insurance, you may qualify for a new continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends, spend more time in range, lower your A1C, and share important data with loved ones and caregivers. Most importantly, a continuous glucose monitor allows you to fully take charge of your health. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you take insulin, you may qualify for a CGM today. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances cover continuous glucose monitors, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call VeraMed Health now.
Call 855-996-9708, 855-996-9708. Call 855-996-9708. Call now.